Welcome to the Spiritist Companion podcast, your bilingual podcast about Spiritism. What a blessing it is to be here together today. My name is Yuri Castro, and I'll be your companion on this journey where we will study, reflect, and put Spiritist teachings into practice. If you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and tune in every Monday for our weekly episodes. For this episode, we're going to be talking about something very difficult and rather delicate: forgiveness, in the light of Spiritism, that is. What can we learn from its teachings, and how can we apply those teachings found in Spiritism in our daily lives when it comes to forgiving? As usual, we're going to begin with a passage from a Spiritist message, and the one that I brought today for you, my friends, is from the book The Way, the Truth, and the Life by Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier. This is message number 24, a passage of message number 24 called The Corroded Treasure. Emmanuel is going to tell us we must work industriously to eliminate the corrosion that has attacked the treasures of our spirit. To do so, it is indispensable to grasp the perfect selflessness and unconditional forgiveness of the gospel story so that we may truly move forward to meet Christ. Let us notice that he's talking about the unconditional forgiveness of the gospel story, what we have learned for so many centuries, even millennia at this point, through different reincarnations, about the story of Jesus Christ, our master, our dear friend, our brother, who taught us so much about forgiveness and this unconditional forgiveness. Because he's saying here that as long as we're trying to practice this unconditional forgiveness, we will be moving forward, which is a great thing to think about. So we're not going to be stuck in the past. We're going to be moving forward to meet Christ. We're going to be advancing in our individual and intransferable journey of our souls, but only if we're practicing these things such as forgiveness and humility and charity and all of the other things. At some other point, Emmanuel also teaches us that forgiveness is a blessing directed first and foremost to ourselves. He says that it is and will always be, meaning it is in the present tense and always will be future tense, what's best for us. He's saying that forgiveness is what is best for us. So it's transforming what we can truly control, which is the present moment, so that we may harvest peace in the time still to come in our future. He also draws our attention to the fact that our supposed offenders, those who have hurt us, are often trapped in greater pain than we can even imagine. We have no idea the battles people are fighting, and oftentimes their acts are mere reflections of what they're feeling on their insides. Sometimes this is the only thing they know. This is the only way they know how to act or to react. So it is up to us to see them with a different pair of glasses, let's call it. If there's something I think we can all agree on, is how difficult it is to forgive. Either forgiving ourselves or forgiving someone else or asking for someone's forgiveness. There are plenty of obstacles in this path, in this journey of forgiveness. To name a few, I thought of pride, selfishness, arrogance, anger, vanity, the belief that other people must apologize first, or that very familiar worry about, what will others think of me if I forgive? What are people going to say if I forgive? Are they going to call me a fool? But let's make something clear here. Forgiving is not forgetting. It's also not pretending that something never happened. It is freeing yourselves from the prison of resentment. It's about letting go of the weight, of the hurt, which, when fed, sickens the body and traps the soul. That's what it is. And of course, like I said before, it is very hard because we're still learning all these virtues. We're still putting everything into practice because right now, that's where we are. In the chapter 10 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, titled Blessed Are the Merciful, Allan Kardec gathers various spirit teachings on forgiveness. So I brought only one passage here, not to make it super long. Chapter 10, item 15, they say, "Forgiveness is the triumph of the soul over pride and vengeance." Forgiveness is the triumph of the soul over pride and vengeance. Pride, vengeance, all these things that I mentioned before as these barriers to forgiveness. But they're talking here about the triumph of the soul. And oftentimes the triumph of the soul is something that is not so easily observable with the materialistic eyes that we carry, because we still live in an imperfect world, still inhabited by imperfect beings. That's our planet. So oftentimes the triumph of the soul will be regarded as a failure of social norms, or a failure of what society deems to be right, or deems to be fair, or deems to be applicable. For many who saw Christ crucified in that moment regarded it as a failure. They thought that he had failed, when in fact we know that is completely the opposite. In other words, forgiveness, my friends, is an act of inner greatness, a step in the evolution of the soul that has already come to understand that we are all learning. We are all companions on this earthly journey, and we bring with ourselves our virtues, our defects, and all the things that we still need to improve and ameliorate. Bring in the words of Emmanuel again, this one from Words of Eternal Life, this book psychographed by Chico Xavier. He says, this is chapter 91, he says, "Forgive and move on. Grievance is a shadow, resentment is rust on the soul. Don't allow the offenses of others to determine your downfall." So he's saying, forgive and move on. First, the verb to forgive, and then moving on. So first we forgive in order for us to move on, not to carry that weight that imprisons us. He's saying that grievance also is a shadow, and the resentment is rust on the soul. So resentment is this thing that taints our soul, this thing that it's rust, it's ugly, it's, impure, it stays. That's a very beautiful message, I think, my friends, because he's showing us that forgiveness also does not depend on whether the other person repents or if they ask for forgiveness directly. It depends solely on us to decide whether we will carry that pain with us any longer. How many times, though, let's be honest, do we tie our peace of mind to an apology that may never come, actually? And while we wait, we actually delay our own inner peace. We're actually carrying this boulder that we don't need to carry. So Emmanuel here is reminding us that, forgiveness, it's also a bridge to emotional freedom. And another spirit benefactor, Joanna de Angelis, through the hands of Divaldo Franco, she says that forgiveness must be exercised deeply to free the being from the moral prison in which they find themselves. Not just forgiveness of others, but also self-forgiveness. This is vital, because she is also alluding to the fact that the lack of forgiveness creates this prison that we keep ourselves in. We are the jailers and we are the prisoners of that. But she's also talking about not only the forgiveness of others, but the forgiveness towards ourselves, the self-forgiveness, which for some of us, my friends, let's be honest, it's much harder even than forgiving other people. We oftentimes may find it easier to forgive others, but struggle, really struggle to forgive ourselves. So we carry guilt, regrets, about past decisions, and we punish ourselves oftentimes silently for years. Joanna teaches us that without self-forgiveness, there is no emotional wholeness. To forgive oneself is to recognize that we too are learners, and as with any person that's learning anything, the path is rife with mistakes. And all the spirits and all the teachings, Kardec, Emmanuel, Joanna, and so many others, they point in the same direction if we want a model: Jesus Christ. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus told us to reconcile quickly with our adversaries while we're still on the way with them. How beautiful and deep and hard is that? How hard it is to actually internalize this idea that we must reconcile with our adversaries while we are on the same path that they are. Jesus here is alluding to this notion that we already talked about, my friends, about controlling what we can control, aka the present, what we do right now, not leaving things for a tomorrow that may never come, or even if it comes, we don't know how it's going to come and when it's going to come. The people that we have around us are those who we must have around. And we don't even know how long we have with them. We don't even know how long we waited to have this opportunity to be with them again. So it's important to seize the moment. It's important to realize that we don't know what tomorrow will bring, but we know what we have right now at our disposal. There's also this other passage on chapter 18 that I think many will remember about forgiveness. Simon Peter comes to Jesus and he asks him how many times must he forgive a brother or somebody who has sinned against him. And then he suggests a number. Do you remember, my friends, the number he suggested? To me, I always found it fascinating, and I tried to go back in time and inside the mind of Simon Peter, and I can only imagine that he must have done a mental count very quickly then, where he must have probably thought, 1 time is hard, forgiving 2 times is very hard, 3 times is very, very hard. I don't know, 7? Because he asked Jesus, and he suggested the number 7. To his surprise, what did Jesus say? He says, I tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. So 490 times. Again, I can only imagine their surprise with hearing that number that seemed completely unreachable when we're talking about forgiving offenses. Last but not least, we also can remember the time, that very, very sad time during the crucifixion, when forgiveness flowed naturally from the Divine Master's lips. In one of the most trying moments of his earthly passage, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. At that final, painful moment, Jesus chose, my friends, to ask for forgiveness for the spiritually ignorant ones who were there tormenting him. But how can we then practice forgiveness in our daily lives, some of you may be asking? Well, first, acknowledging what we feel. Don't hide our pain. We must feel it, we must name it, but we must not cling to it. We can pray for the person. Yes, that's what I said. Pray for the person. Even if it hurts at first, wish light for the one who caused you harm. Because prayer, my friends, changes our vibration and draws us closer to the good spirits, those who are always close to us, always rooting for us, always ready to help us. And prayer has that power. Then we can also learn to let go of the hurt. Very hard to do, yes, but that's what we must do. We can write it down, we can talk to a friend about it, or we can talk to a professional, or we can speak to God. He's always there, always available, and his benefactors as well are always available to us to lend us a helping hand. But we must set ourselves free, because heart is a prison. Forgiveness is the liberation, is the key that's going to free us from that prison. Spiritism shows us that forgiveness is not weakness. No, in fact, it is strength from a soul that has matured. It is a sign of humility, one of the virtues taught by our dear Master Jesus. And even if forgiving seems hard today, remember, you are not alone on this journey, my companions. The good spirits are with you, strengthening you, surrounding you with love. And with that, we reached the end of our meeting today. We reflected together on forgiveness, its beauty, its challenges, and the light it can bring to our lives and to those surrounding us. I truly hope this was helpful, even if just a little. With fraternal love, your Spiritist companion.